could have your attention, please? Thank you. I'm Jean Culpepper, and I directed tonight's play. The circumstances surrounding our production are a little unusual. You see, I was very flattered when Billy St. John, who wrote Murders in the Air, and as you've noticed in your programs, Heir is spelled H-E-I-R. Murders in the Air. Get it? Yes, well, I was very flattered when Mr. St. John contacted me and asked me to direct his play's premiere production. Actually, it was a work in progress. He made several changes and rewrites throughout the rehearsal period. And while it was exciting to be part of a brand new work, to tell you the truth, it put quite a strain on me, the cast, and the playwright.
You got that right.
Hush, Joachim. Actors should be unseen and unheard until the curtain opens. Sorry about that. Fact is, the cast and I are feeling a little nervous about the show because, well, it isn't quite finished. Oh, but don't worry. We're gonna go on. The show must go on. As somebody once said, I don't know who, but I'd love to get my hands around his neck. Yes, well, you see, it's a murder mystery, and most characters have great motives to kill. Well, you'll see who. Well, you see, the thing is, Mr. St. John could not make up his mind who should be the killer. He wrote several different endings in which various different characters were revealed to be the murderer. And we performed them all for him. But he still couldn't make up his mind. And as it got closer and closer to opening night, the tension in the air, that's A-I-R, grew so thick you could cut it with a knife. It got so bad he had what will sure prove to be a temporary breakdown. The reason Mr. St. John is not here with us tonight is because he's under heavy sedation in a place with soft walls and lots of padding. Some people have all the luck. But the casting crew and I are here, though, and we are determined to provide an entertaining show for you, even if it kills us. That's just a figure of speech, of course. Well, this brings me to the main points of meeting up here, to announce that you are going to have to help us. During intermission, a screen will come up with a QR code, and you are going to have to scan the QR code with your devices later. And as you watch the first act, you'll discover which characters have motives to kill someone. A character which will, indeed, be dead by the time the act ends. And for intermission, we need you to scan the QR codes and vote on who you think is most likely to be the killer. And then for the second act, Mr. St. John has prepared a scene for who is revealed to be the murderer at this performance. And the cast will perform that. At least that's what I hope will happen. It got very confusing during rehearsals.
It's a wonder we didn't kill the playwright.
We might as well just get started. I saved my seat down in the front row just to follow in the script if things get a little shaky, which they won't, but just in case. Then, are you ready, cast?
As ready as we're gonna be.
Then, let's do it! Places, lights.
Nancy, please, you know Mr. Starkweather's resting in his bedroom right through that doorway. You mustn't startle him.
I'm sorry, Miss Withers, but you startled me.
My apologies, dear. I dare say a slight scare to someone like you will do no harm. However, a sudden shock to a man in his 90s and Mr. Starkweather's medical condition could prove fatal. Remember that.
Yes, Miss Withers, I guess this terrible storm has made me a little edgy.
Yes, it is quite a tempestuous evening. I presume all the guests have been shown to their rooms.
Yes, ma'am. Well, All but Mrs. Starkweather's grandson, Simon III. It's a long drive from the college in this storm, you know.
I hope we can start without him. It's already past Mr. Starkweather's bedtime, and he needs to sleep.
I assure you, Miss Withers, the room is spotlessly clean.
I certainly hope so. Mr. Starkweather's asthmatic condition can make the merest mote of dust potentially lethal.
I have served as Mr. Starkweather's housekeeper for many years before you came here, Miss Withers. I don't need you to tell me how to do my job. You brought the coffee?
Yes, it's right here on the coffee table, Mrs. Trent.
Then go back to the kitchen and help Minerva with the rest of the refreshments.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Starkweather gave specific instructions that he wishes to have everyone in the drawing room at 8 o'clock sharp. I'll ask Bensonhurst to fetch the guests from their rooms.
Mr. Starkweather will be ready. Coming, Mr. Starkweather.
I done got all the cars parked in the garages, like you told me.
As I told you. Oh, why waste my breath? You're dripping water all over the foyer. And why did you enter through the front door, Rufus? I've told you a million times that servants never enter through the front door.
I reckon I forgot, Mr. Bensonhurst. Besides, it's raining out there.
Yes, I am aware of that, Rufus. But now it looks as if it was raining in here as well, thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Just go back the way you came and maneuver yourself around to the back door. Do you think you can manage that?
I don't know, but I suppose I'm going to find out.
When the final guest, young Mr. Simon, arrives, I shall summon you so you can park his car for him.
Oh, good. While I'm waiting, I'll sit by the stove and see if I can grow gills.
Don't be impertinent.
How can I be if I don't know what it means?
Just do as you're told and go to the kitchen and wait till I call for you. Not that way. Have you forgotten already? I told you to go around to the back door.
Nope, but I was hoping you had.
That man is an idiot.
I heard that.
Where do you want me to put this one, Minerva?
On the coffee table. Careful with it.
I think everything's ready.
You think wrong. Place the cups on the saucers so all we have to do is pour the coffee.
Yes, ma'am.
The others are coming down. Mrs. Van Zandt informed me that Mrs. Starkweather wishes the servants to be present as well.
Wait, he wants the servants here?
Precisely. Even Rufus. Had I been informed of that fact sooner, I would order him to take a bath. But he has been parking cars in the rain all day, so perhaps that will help.
If you ask me, Noah's flood wouldn't help.
Be that as it may, I shall summon him and Mrs. Trent.
Minerva, why does Mrs. Starkweather want those servants to be there?
Gee, let me pull out my crystal ball and let you know. What did I tell you when you first came to work here?
Do as you're told and don't ask questions.
Exactly. Stick to that.
I will, Minerva.
Oh dear, I never know what to wear on special occasions. I suppose Uncle Simon's inviting us here is a special occasion, isn't it, Jordan?
Well, I suppose so, when you consider that most of the time he treats us like lepers.
You think Uncle Simon treats us like jungle cats?
No, not leopards, Mother. Oh, forget it. And don't worry, Mother, you look fine.
Thank you, son.
I should tell you one thing. If we should ever inherit this mausoleum, the first thing we'll be doing is calling the Adams family and let them know it's on the market.
Counting chickens, are we?
Oh, Minerva, we didn't see you and your attractive young helper there.
Nancy's a nice girl, and I plan for her to stay that way.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't know what you mean.
I doubt that.
I don't understand.
I believe that. Fiona, why don't you have a seat and we'll bring you some coffee?
Coffee, that sounds nice. It's a little damp in here.
Kaz, it's a lot damp out there. How do you take it? How do you take it?
Mother prefers hers black. I like mine sweet. I'll flavor it myself.
Whatever.
Oh, what lovely hors d'oeuvres.
You're looking very pretty tonight, Nancy.
Thank you, sir.
So, that makes me feel as old as Great Uncle Simon. Please, call me Jordan.
She'll call you Mr. Starkweather like a proper maid should. If anyone else is going to be calling you anything else around here, it's going to be me. And you don't want to know what name I'm thinking of.
Oh, Minerva, you never change.
Neither do you. More's the pity. Now go have a seat next to your mother.
Yes, Drill Sergeant.
My goodness, Kathy. I don't see how y'all can stand living out here in the boonies, away from fine restaurants and movies and shopping centers. Why, I get so depressed, I just sit down and wait.
Oh, it's not that bad, Paula. I stay here during the week and go to my apartment in town on most weekends.
I'm so relieved to hear that.
I worked for a large corporation before Mrs. Starkweather hired me to be his personal secretary. And believe me, this position is so much nicer.
Look what we have here. 2 rays of sunshine to dispel the gloom. You look beautiful, ladies.
I swear, Cousin Jordan, you are a rogue and a charmer.
Oh, I do my best. Won't you join us?
Why don't you have a seat over there? You'll be safer. We'll bring you some coffee.
Thanks, Minerva. Oh, I'll take mine black.
Load mine down with lots of cream and sugar. I must admit, I have an enormous sweet tooth.
Maybe that's what causes your corn syrup accent.
And how are you this evening, Cousin Fiona?
What? Oh, I'm very well. Thank you, Paula.
That's just peachy. I swear, I don't know why we don't see more of one another. It seems like the only time we get together is for somebody's funeral.
Well, aren't all funerals for somebody?
Shame on you. Don't be morbid, Cousin Jordan. I'm glad this weekend's an exception to the rule. For once, no one is dead.
So far, anyway.
It's okay, honey. You didn't spill any.
What did you mean by that remark, Jordan?
Oh, nothing. It's just when you called to tell us that Great Uncle Simon wanted Mother and me to come to Starkweather Mansion for the weekend, at first we assumed that he had passed on.
Ha, you wish.
Started to pack my new black dress.
I mean, it was a natural assumption. He is getting up in his years and in bad health. I was relieved to find out the old boy is still with us. Of course.
Kathy, darling, I bet you know our great Uncle Simon desired our presence here this frightful evening. Come on, tell.
Well, Miss Van Zant will go into the particulars, but I believe Mr. Starkweather wished to discuss his will.
Really? Really?
I'd appreciate if you didn't drool on my hors d'oeuvres.
Why, you misjudged me, Minerva. I was surprised, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Where's Cousin Simon? Shouldn't he be here too?
Well, when I contacted him last week, he said he could make it. Apparently, he's going to be late. If he tried to call here tonight, he couldn't get through. The phone lines are down.
If we're going to discuss the will, he should be here. He is Uncle Simon's only grandchild.
Yes, and is probably going to get everything.
Excuse me. I hate to interrupt. You're doing great, guys. You really are. But I suggested to Mr. St. John that these family relationships can get a bit confusing. And he agreed to write a piece that explained everything. And he was working on it. But that was when he, snapped like a rubber band. I think the family tree is in your programs too, but I'll just tell you. So here's the way it works. Simon Starkweather, the old billionaire whom you meet shortly, married late in life and produced one heir, Simon Jr. Simon Jr. in turn married and produced Simon the Third, the young college student who's currently late for the gathering. Anyway, the original Mr. Starkweather, Simon II, and his wife are now deceased. Old Simon's eldest brother, Paul, had a daughter, Bella, who married Lucian Thompson, the Atlanta businessman. And they had a daughter, Paula here. Anyway, Paul, his wife, Bella, and Lucian are now deceased. Old Simon's youngest brother, John, married and produced Ezra, who married Fiona here. This is Fiona. And they had a son, Jordan. This is Jordan. But you already know that. John, his wife, and Ezra are now deceased. I realize there's a lot of dead people in this play, but if they'd all been included, it would have looked like a marching band wandered through the living room. And believe me, it was hard enough moving people about as it was. At any rate, old Simon is Fiona's great uncle by marriage, and Jordan and Paula's uncle. That makes Simon, Paula, and Jordan cousins? Second or third cousins. I don't really fully understand how that works, but I'm sure that cleared things up for you. Sorry for the interruption. Carry on.
We don't have the foggiest notion where we are.
Sorry. Take it from Zach and Gabby's entrance. Alex,
Yes.
give them their entrance cue.
What is it?
And they'll probably get everything.
Who will?
Your cousin Simon.
Oh, yeah, got it. Yeah, and he's probably going to get everything.
I'm very pleased with your investigation, Mr. Davis. I'll be glad to recommend you to my other clients.
Just doing my job, Miss Van Zant.
Good evening, everyone.
I know we haven't met yet, but I've got a pretty good idea of who you all are. Mrs. Starkweather and her son, Jordan, right?
That's right, Mr.
Davis, call me Mike.
From what Miss Van Zant just said, I assume he must be some sort of investigator?
You got it, pal. The private kind.
I see.
Who is this nice young man, dear?
He's a detective, Mother.
A detective? Oh, how exciting! Do you know Sherlock Holmes?
No, ma'am. He's way out of my league. I do know who you two ladies must be, though.
If you're a private investigator, I'd be surprised if you didn't.
That accent settles it. You're Paula Thompson.
And you're 100% correct. I can't deny I'm from the Deep South.
If you were from any deeper south, you'd be from Central America.
So that leaves you to be Kathy Collins. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person.
Me too, Mike. Mike and I have corresponded for some time by fax and mail on Mrs. Starkweather's behalf.
Is this seat taken? Nope. I'll park it here.
And I expect you to remain unobtrusive.
I sure will. As soon as I find the dictionary and look it up.
Just sit over there by the fire and keep quiet.
By the fire? Glad to. My backside is still kind of soggy.
Keep an eye on him, will you?
Shall do my best.
If all is in ready, Mrs. Van Zandt, I shall inform Mrs. Starkweather.
Yes, thank you, Bensonhurst.
There's coffee if anyone else wants some.
I could use some Minerva.
How do you take it?
In a cup.
Black, please.
Keep still. Miss Van Zant, I understand Great Uncle Simon has asked us here to talk about his will.
That is correct. Frankly, I did not think it was a good idea.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Starkweather's health is precarious at best, and he doesn't need the excitement. I advised him to communicate with you all by mail, but he insisted on summoning you here to Starkweather Mansion. I only hope he doesn't live to regret that decision.
Miss Withers is bringing Mrs. Starkweather in to join us.
Can I move now?
Here you are, Mr. Starkweather.
Go.
I'll be right here if you need me.
To think I was once surrounded by presidents and kings. Could my world have shrunk to this? A meager staff of hired help and a handful of relatives. Simon, where's my grandson?
We presume he's on his way, Mrs. Starkweather.
Can't wait for him. Not enough time anymore.
Good evening, Great Uncle Simon. You're looking very well.
Are you blind, boy, or just a habitual liar?
I was only making pleasantries, Uncle.
Save your breath. You've always been a smooth talker, Jordan, but that doesn't cut any ice with me. You're nothing but a greedy opportunist, boy. I ought to know. I was one myself at your age.
Then I guess it runs in the family.
You have a point. Well, Fiona, you look the same.
I do. Why, thank you, Uncle Simon.
That wasn't necessarily a compliment.
Great Uncle Simon, you're awful.
At my age, and with my money, I can afford to say exactly what I think. And I do. How's my little Georgia Peach?
Little old me? I'm just peachy, Uncle.
I may barf. Mr. Starkweather, there's coffee if you want some.
No. He mustn't have any. The caffeine will keep him awake, and it could affect his blood pressure. Sometimes his medications cause us to run a little high.
Apparently, I won't be having any Minerva. You heard my keeper.
Yes, sir.
Everyone aspires to live to a ripe old age. And for what? To be kept alive by medicines and machines? And to be kept from enjoying so much of life's little pleasures, such as a cup of coffee?
You mustn't excite yourself, Mr. Starkweather.
You see, I'm not even allowed to feel any strong emotions.
Well, that's a bummer.
Ah, you put it so succinctly, Rufus. I could have searched my vocabulary extensively and never come up with such an apt description. Bummer.
Glad you like it.
According to my doctors, I won't have to remain a prisoner in this weak old body for much longer. There's only one thing I hate to leave behind. My money.
Well, you know what they say, Uncle? You can't take it with you.
Yes, well, that's what they say. So several years back, I had Lois here draw up my will. I suppose you'd like to know how I provided for you, my heirs?
For one, admit I'm just a teensy bit curious.
A teensy bit, eh?
I was afraid something like this was going to happen. Here, Mr. Starkweather, breathe deeply. You see what you've done?
Me? I did it!
Should someone call an ambulance?
We can't. The phones are dead.
It's all right. He just lost his breath. He just needs to breathe pure oxygen for a few moments.
Very well. This here is the will that Mr. Starkweather was referring to. As you know, he has been a phenomenally successful businessman for many years now.
I'll say he's been on the cover of Forbes magazine at least a dozen times.
I never read it.
He has the distinction of becoming one of the world's first billionaires.
20 years ago, I begged dear Ezra to ask his Uncle Simon to advise him on his business investments, but he was too proud.
Yeah, Dad had his pride. Lots of pride and very little money.
If I may continue, Mr. Starkweather's fortune is now worth in the neighborhood of $50 billion.
If I'd known that, I would have asked for a raise.
I won't go into the details of the will now, but it essentially bequeaths $1 million each to his household staff. Mr. Bensonhurst, his butler, Mrs. Trent, his housekeeper, Minerva Walker, his cook, Miss Withers, his nurse, Nancy Pollard, his maid, and Rufus Jones, his handyman.
Forget the raise!
Mrs. Starkweather, I had no idea.
The will goes on to state that the rest of the money is to be divided equally among his surviving relatives. His grandson, Simon III, his niece, Fiona Starkweather, and her son, Jordan, shall share 1/3, and his great-niece, Paula Thompson.
Isn't that nice?
I always knew you'd do right by us, Uncle.
I know you got mad when Mama married a Southern boy great uncle, but you two must have agreed on one thing. Blood is thicker than water.
I bet you Miss Withers can tell you if it is.
Now that I've informed you of the will's contents, I have another announcement to make. As of tomorrow, this will becomes invalid.
What does invalid mean?
It means no good.
I got a brother that's invalid.
What Miss Van Zandt means is we're not getting the money anymore, you fool!
I guess I won't be buying that big screen TV I was thinking about after all.
Sit. You too, Lois.
Why did you decide to disinherit us, Uncle?
Found a better use for my money. That's why. Oh, I didn't cut you out completely. Each of you in the old will get $50,000.
50,000 out of 50 billion!
Lois advised me it would be a good idea to leave you a little something so you'd be less likely to contest my new will.
New will?
That's why I had Kathy here stay over at Starkweather Mansion this weekend to draw it up nice and legal for my signature. Mr. Davis, as the disinterested party, will witness the signing, and Lois will file it at the courthouse come Monday.
Mr. Davis said he's a detective. What did you hire him to do?
Mr. Starkweather hired me to conduct an investigation on the quiet. For the last 6 months, I've flown to a dozen or more foreign countries and interviewed some of the world's most brilliant scientists. Some well-known, others who'd prefer to keep their findings hush-hush. I succeeded in finding one in Belgium. Let's call him Dr. X. And he agreed to help Mr. Starkweather do as he wishes, which is to clone himself.
Clone?
Oh my goodness!
That's insane!
What nonsense!
You must be kidding.
It's immoral.
I don't understand. Good. For the first time, I'm not the only one.
Those blood and skin samples you had me prepare, the ones you said would be examined by specialists.
They were sent to specialists, Withers. Specialists in DNA.
I thought you were trying to find a cure.
I was. Not for my various ailments, but a cure for dying. And I did find it.
Cloning.
Precisely. Through modern science, I shall live forever!
It's not right.
That's neither here nor there. Let the moralists and politicians debate on that for decades to come. Meanwhile, Dr. X, as Davis so named him, will be creating a brand new me. Sit down, Withers. The lot of you seem displeased. Not because of the moral issue, I presume, but because of your change in fortune. Too bad. Cloning is very expensive, especially since the entire process must be done in absolute secrecy. After the procedure is complete, ample funds will be available for the new me to inherit. No doubt, I will be the first person on Earth to become my own heir! Withers, my blood pressure.
Yes, Mr. Starkweather. If you'll excuse us, I need to take Mr. Starkweather's blood pressure.
Why don't you take it right here?
Mr. Starkweather's arms are too frail for me to get a reading of. This is an outsized cuff made to go around a patient's thigh. He can stand the pressure from the inflated cuff better there. Mr. Starkweather's had enough excitement for one evening. I shall take him and put him to bed.
I guess that concludes our meeting, unless there are any last questions.
Ooh. What the heck was that all about?
It's simple. Rufus, great Uncle Simon was going to leave us all a fortune, but he changed his mind. Instead, he's decided to clone himself.
What does clone mean?
It means to take cells from one person's body and make a duplicate of that original.
Well, that's great. When old Mr. Starkweather passes away, I can get a new job working for the new Mr. Starkweather.
The new Mr. Starkweather will have to be born and grow up. It goes against the laws of nature. How?
It has all been arranged. Once Dr. X has created the new life, the cells will be implanted into a host mother who will carry the child to term.
Host mother? Who?
That be me. Well, why not? I'm young, I'm healthy, I'll make a good mother for little Simon.
How could you even consider being part of this travesty?
Hey, I'll be well compensated. Besides, have you known anyone else give birth to a baby billionaire?
Uncle Simon's giving his money to a baby?
In a manner of speaking, yes. The new will places Mr. Starkweather's fortune into a trust fund, which I'll administer. After that, I'll release the money to pay Dr. X and his staff to perform the cloning procedure. Then, ample funds will be available to provide for Kathy's needs and the child's upbringing and education. Once he is trained to properly deal in high finance, the fortune will be turned over to him.
The kid will look, act, and think like Simon Starkweather. He could conceivably parlay those billions into trillions by the time he's an old man.
But for what purpose? To give it to another clone and another and another? Where will it end? When there's a Mr. Starkweather with enough money and power to rule the world?
We didn't discuss it. But you might well be right.
Can't believe you condone in such madness.
Oh, I could. Miss Van Zandt, that Collins girl will live like billionaires themselves off Mr. Starkweather's money. Money that should have gone to us and his family. And I suppose you'll get rich too, since you're part of this whole scheme.
And not me. I did the job I was paid to do. My part's over. I'll take my very generous check and go home. Frankly, I don't even care if the boss's science fiction plan works or not.
You should be ashamed. You should all be ashamed.
I believe you made your feelings quite clear, ladies. And now if you and the other servants will join me, I wish to speak to all of you in the kitchen.
It'd be nice hearing the pitter-patter of little feet around the house.
Shut up, Rufus.
We'll clear after you've finished. I trust you'll ring if you require anything else.
Kathy and I will retire to my room. You might as well begin typing up the new will tonight. I'll direct you on how to put everything together in the proper legal terms.
Sure, Lois. The sooner it's finished and signed, the better.
Hey, wait a minute. How come nobody asked me if I wanted to carry the baby? I can do it just as well as she can.
You're Mr. Starkweather's blood kin, Paula. It wouldn't be proper.
Oh, I guess it would be kind of tacky.
Proper. You're about to conduct an experiment that makes Frankenstein look like an amateur, and you're worried about being proper.
Cool it, kid, before you burst a blood vessel. Mr. Starkweather made up his mind, and whatever the old man wants, he gets.
Succinctly put, Mr. Davis. Kathy?
I'm gonna go upstairs and pack. After the signing of the new will, I won't have any reason to hang around. Night.
We were robbed!
We were?
Yes, Mother. Great Uncle Simon dangled a fortune in front of our noses and then snatched it away.
That was mean!
Mean? The man is a monster! Didn't you see the evil glint in his eyes? He enjoyed pulling the rug from under our feet.
At least he's leaving us 50,000.
To him, that's no more than tossing a dime to a beggar. And you heard him. He's only doing it to keep us from breaking that new will.
Yeah.
I wish he were dead. I wish that old goat would drop dead tonight.
It would serve him right.
If Uncle Simon did die tonight, then we'd get all our money. Wouldn't we, my dears?
Would anyone care for a game of bridge?
Penny for your thoughts. It's all I can afford to pay now.
Mrs. Starkweather,
It's Jordan, remember?
I thought everyone had gone to bed.
I was going to turn in, but I got the urge for a midnight snack.
I'll go fix you something.
Never mind. What are you doing up this late?
Mrs. Trent sent me in here to make sure that the fire screen is properly closed so that no sparks will pop out onto the rug.
And burn stuck with mansion to the ground? Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad idea after all.
You shouldn't talk like that. You know Mrs. Starkweather is an invalid. How could he...
You read my mind.
Jordan!
Finally, I got you to call me by my first name.
You mustn't even suggest such a thing. It's wicked.
If he died tonight, you would have $1 million, and I would have billions. Think of the good times we could have. Together.
Don't.
It is a tempting thought, though, admit it.
No, it's a horrible idea.
Which part? The money, or us together?
The part about the money.
And about us?
Nancy, I thought you were meant to be helping me with the dishes.
I was just checking the French doors, Minerva, to make sure that they're properly locked.
I see. And what are you doing in here?
I got hungry, so I came for a snack. And I saw Nancy. We stopped for a little chat.
That appetite of yours is going to get you in a lot of trouble one of these days.
Minerva, what are you doing with that knife?
Mincing onions?
At midnight?
I can't stand to have anyone see me cry. I heard some voices in here, so I thought I'd come check. If you're hungry, come with me. I'll find you something.
Yes, Minerva. Anything you say, Minerva.
Nancy, when you're finished checking, come help me in the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
Rufus, I thought I heard someone come in.
It was just me.
So I see. Good grief, man. What are you doing with that axe?
It's like this. I remember chopping wood for the fire this afternoon before it started raining, but I didn't put the axe back in the shed. I forgot. I've been dismembering things a lot lately. When it come to me where I left it, I figured it'd be better to bring it inside and dry it off so it don't rust.
That's fine. But why did you bring it into the living room? And besides, how many times do I have to tell you to use the back door?
As many as you want. I ain't counting.
Oh, I swear, Rufus, you'll be the death of me yet. All right, go into the kitchen and have Mrs. Trent give you a towel.
I ain't wet. It quit raining.
Yes, I know that. To dry the axe.
All right.
And Rufus, the back door, please. If that man had a brain, he'd be dangerous.
I heard that.
Penny, your thoughts?
Jordan, I just came down for a breath of fresh air. What are you doing up this late?
Munchies, want a cookie?
No, thanks.
So, have you and Miss Van Zandt finished that new will yet?
Yes, it's all ready except for Mrs. Starkweather's signature. Well, I see you've calmed down. I wouldn't blame you if you hated me.
Now, why should I hate you? I'd make the same deal if I were in your shoes.
Sure you would, Jordan.
You know, Minerva was right. Being the mother of little Simon will be the next best thing to owning the billions for yourself. But aren't you forgetting something, though?
What?
The little tyke will need a dad, too. Someone to guide him and build him and mold him into the perfect replica of Great Uncle Simon. A heartless, money-making machine.
You think so?
Oh, I know so. And who would be a better father figure than I? You know, you're a very attractive woman, Kathy. Maybe we could mix business with pleasure.
Take your crummy hands off of me.
What?
You're getting cookie crumbs on my blouse. Oh, yeah, and by the way, forget it. If I decide little Simon is going to need a father after he's born, I'll pick a suitable husband then. I don't know who it will be, but it definitely will not be a sleazy, money-hungry slimeball such as you, Jordan Starkweather.
I could kill you, you witch!
Oh, I wouldn't try if I were you. Not with a detective in the house.
Aren't you finished in here yet?
I need to make everything all right, Mrs. Trent.
Well, hurry up, girl. Minerva wants you in the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't dawdle. Nancy, did you hear me? Don't dawdle.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Someone left the French doors open. I'll close them. Miss Thompson?
Mrs. Trent! You gave me a fright.
I suppose I should be grateful you didn't shoot me.
Oh, don't worry. I know how to handle a gun. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd come down here and clean it. I was going to go have a look in the kitchen for some oil.
I doubt you'll find what you need in there, unless you want to rub it with Crisco. Tell me, do you often carry that thing around with you?
I take it everywhere I go. Daddy told me to be a crack shot when I was 10. A girl can't be too careful.
Well, I don't think you have anything to worry about at Starkweather Mansion. It's miles from the nearest town, and no one ever comes out this way.
You've never had a burglary or a prowler?
No.
Just with Great Uncle Simon being so sick and all. It's a wonder somebody hasn't tried to steal something. With his bedroom being on the ground floor, anybody could just walk in those French doors and go in his room and do who knows what.
Like shoot him.
Well, it could happen. As terrible as that thought is, just in his condition, how could he defend himself?
He could stick Miss Withers on them. That should frighten away any intruders.
Oh, you're just awful. But you know what? I wouldn't want to tangle with that woman. Where does she sleep?
In the room beyond Mr. Starkweather, so she can hear me if he rings for her in the night.
Let's see if I remember correctly. Once when Mama brought me here when I was a little girl, that room there was the library, and the room beyond it was a parlor. Am I correct?
You are correct. When Mr. Starkweather became too ill to go up and down the stairs, the library was converted into a bedroom, and Miss Withers took the parlor.
So they're the only ones who sleep downstairs?
Yes, the servants' quarters are in the attic, under the eaves. We have our own staircase from the kitchen. Tell me, why do you ask?
Just curious.
Excuse me. Sorry. I thought that little piece of dialogue was a bit awkward, and I suggested to Mr. St. John that he cut it. But he felt you needed to get an idea of the layout of the house. But he insisted I leave it in. So I did. But it's a bad piece of writing. And I just wanted to let you know that I tried to correct it. Sorry for the interruption. Carry on.
I want you to know that if you do that again, you're going to have to bring that script on stage and play this trick yourself.
Sorry. Sorry.
That was great. I wish I had your nerve. Where are we?
You were curious about the house layout, are you?
Yes, just curious.
Well, you know, Miss Thompson, what they say. Curiosity killed the cat.
Yes. Well, if you'll excuse me.
Wouldn't it be ironic if someone did break in tonight, of all nights, and...
Mrs. Starkweather.
Bensonhurst! You nearly frightened me to death.
Yes, my apologies, madam. Might I ask what kind of pills you just strewn about the room?
Digitalis for my heart. I have a heart condition.
Digitalis? Doesn't that speed up one's heart rate?
Oh, yes. My little heart is just pumping away.
Yeah, then perhaps a single dosage will be sufficient. I suppose an overdose could be fatal, yes?
Extremely fatal. Or am I being redundant? I suppose fatal is fatal. Just like dead is dead. Don't you agree?
Completely. One cannot be deader than someone else. Dead longer, perhaps, so that's the only comparison that comes to mind. Might I ask why you brought the medication into the living room?
Why? That's a very good question. Why did I bring them here? Oh, I remember. Well, I was going to go see if Miss Withers happened to have any of those free manufacturer samples of digitalis she might not need. You know, her and her medical connections.
Yes, but it seemed as if the bottle was full already.
It was. But it never hurts to plan ahead. We had better gather them up.
Yeah, allow me to assist you.
Bensonhurst, can I ask you something?
Be my guest.
Why are you carrying a wrench?
A wrench? Well, you see, I happen to remember that Miss Withers mentioned that the valve on the gas heater in Mrs. Starkweather's bedroom was a little loose, and I thought I would give it an extra turn or two.
My, how mechanical of you. We wouldn't want any of that gas escaping into his room, would we?
Naturally not, but first things first, shall we?
I feel like a pigeon pecking popcorn.
You missed one there.
Where?
beside your left kneecap. No, your left kneecap.
Ah, got it. Oh, they've rolled just everywhere.
Yes, round objects tend to do that, madam.
Nurse Withers!
Mrs. Starkweather, what are you doing on the floor with Bensonhurst?
Getting I spilled my pills. My digitalis. Oh, please watch where you put your feet. Both of them, my dear.
I see Mrs. Starkweather's required an injection. Is there a problem?
Nothing I can't handle. Mr. Starkweather's lungs seem to be somewhat congested, so I took him from his bed and placed him in an upright position. He tends to breathe easier like that. Then I gave him an injection of steroids to help open his bronchial passages.
My. What would Uncle Simon do without you?
He would be dead. Without my help, his heart would have stopped beating a long time ago.
Ah, that reminds me. Wasn't there something you wanted to ask Miss Withers?
Was there?
Yes, about the digitalis.
Oh, right! Miss Withers, I was wondering if you happen to have any of those manufacturer's free samples of digitalis you might not need. I have a heart condition and like to keep a supply handy.
I can see why you would. Yours tend to run out, don't they? I'm sorry, Mrs. Starkweather. I'm fresh out of spirit drugs. Your uncle needs everything he's got to keep him going.
My, then we had better gather up all of mine. Will he help us, my dear?
Sure.
Is this a private game, or can anybody play?
Mr. Davis! We're just picking up my spilled pills. I dropped my digitalis.
Is that it? I thought you were holding a tiny little marble tournament. I'll pass.
If you'll excuse me, I must return to my duties.
Yes, and here are mine.
Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
How's the boss, Miss Withers?
Bossy. He sent me here for a pitcher of fresh drinking water. If I'm not back in a minute, he'll start ringing that bell. You see what I mean? I'm coming, Mr. Starkweather.
I gather he rings for you a lot?
Incessantly. When he stops ringing that bell, I'll know he's kicked the bucket.
Spoken like a true member of the medical field, am I right, Bensonhurst? What's with the wrench? Got a problem I could help you with?
Thank you, sir. But no, it can wait. I too shall excuse myself.
Wow!
You're up kind of late, Mrs. Starkweather.
I couldn't sleep. What about you, Mr. Davis?
I'm a real night owl. Besides, I was hoping young Simon Starkweather would show up. I mean, I haven't met him yet.
Simon's a sweet boy. I do hope he's all right, with the storm and all.
He could have stopped off the side of the road to let it pass. We could be in for another deluge.
Oh dear, I hope not. I believe I'll go back to my room and lie down.
Good night again, Mrs. Starkweather.
Good night.
I'm coming, Mr. Starkweather. Oh, you're still here.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on things.
I see. Well, my patient.
Oh, you're up too, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. There seems to be more traffic going through Starkweather Mansion than goes down the interstate at rush hour.
I know what you mean. I've been hearing footsteps go past my bedroom door all evening. I'm not surprised, though. We could have guessed that Mr. Starkweather's announcement would have given his heirs a sleepless night or two.
Between us, Miss Van Zant, this cloning business, how do you feel about it?
Well, you see, Mr. Davis, I'm a lawyer. I'm paid to think, not feel. Can Mr. Starkweather be cloned? Well, definitely. There's no question the technology does exist. Should he be cloned? Well, let's just say I wouldn't want to be the first to challenge nature by creating another Lois Van Zant.
Me too. I'm a simple guy, and I've got enough to deal with in one lifetime. The quicker we can get the signing of the new will, and the quicker we can get back to the real world, the better.
The new will is finished. Mr. Starkweather can sign it first thing in the morning.
The old boy's still awake. His nurse was just in here a minute ago, and he was ringing that bell for her.
Well, in that case, there's no reason he can't sign it now.
That's what I'm thinking. Everyone in this house is as tense as a bunch of long-tailed cats in a room full of rocking chairs.
I'll go out to my room and get the will. Why don't you let Mr. Starkweather know?
What?
In the
Don't
world?
you go see?
The circuit breaker must have tripped.
But the storm passed hours ago.
I know. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I'll go find Bensonhurst and have him show me where the main breaker is.
I'll let Mr. Starkweather know we're taking care of it. It's all right, Mr. Starkweather. I'm coming.
Hello? Oh, stay alive, stay alive. Is anybody in here? Mrs. Trent? Bensonhurst? Anybody?
Kathy?
Lois!
I think there's something wrong with Mr. Starkweather, and I don't know where that nurse is.
Oh no, and he hasn't signed the new will yet, has he?
No, but perhaps he just fainted. We really need some light. Mr. Davis is trying to... Ah! Oh, Mr. Starkweather!
Yeah, I was on the lights. I don't know why.
What happened? Someone struck me.
It's Mr. Starkweather, help him!
I heard a scream.
He's dead. Someone put the blood pressure cuff around his neck and pumped it to the maximum of 300 millimeters of mercury. Mr. Starkweather's been strangled to death.
Poor Mrs. Starkweather. Who could have done such a thing?
Give me a break, kid. I'd say you and nearly everyone else in this house is on my top 10 list.
Me?
Hold it down. Let me check the body.
Those drops in his robe. Is that blood?
I'm not sure.
Well, what else could it be?
I don't know. I'm the detective here, remember? Miss Withers, what can you tell us?
When I brought Mr. Starkweather's pitcher of water, I made sure he was breathing all right. And then I went through to my room and I lay across my bed. A few moments later, the lights went out.
I noticed that too.
Hush!
Mr. Starkweather started ringing his bell, but I was lighting a candle and someone struck me with a heavy object. I must have blacked out because when I came to, the lights were on.
We can
And
take it from there.
You seem to be in charge, Mr. Davis. What do we do now?
We keep trying the lines till we can get through to the police. If the lines aren't up by morning, someone will have to drive me into town and report that there's been a murder at Starkweather Mansion.
Murder.
Maybe that old man did himself in. Or maybe not. Young Mr. Simon, you made it, and boy, do we have a surprise for you.
Wasn't that the most diabolical murder you've ever seen? Don't you just love it? The way Mr. St. John's mind works. It's no wonder he went bonkers. Now, remember, the first thing we need you to do during intermission is to use your QR code scanner and scan the QR code and vote on who you think is most likely to be the killer. Well, if you don't need to go for a drink of water or anything, well, see you in 15 minutes. Yes, well, there are a couple things Mr. St. John intended to put in the second act after he learned who would be the murderer. There are lines or actions that will lead you to the culprit's identity. The cast will work these into the show. Well, I just want to let you know that you can continue playing Armchair Detective, and I guess that's about it. For now. Relax and enjoy the conclusion of Murders in Air.
Dead? I can't believe that grandfather's dead.
Well, he is Cousin Simon. He's the deadest person I ever saw.
Funny you should say that. Bensonhurst and I were discussing the degrees of dead earlier, and
And he was murdered.
There's no doubt about it. You saw the body.
Poor grandfather. If only I'd got here sooner, then maybe...
How do we know you didn't get here sooner?
What?
For all we know, you could have arrived hours ago. parked your car out of sight, slipped into the house, killed the lights moments before you killed Simon Starkweather.
That's ridiculous. Why would I kill him?
I'd say a third of a 50 billion is a good enough reason to knock somebody off.
But I didn't know about the new will. I wasn't here when Grandfather announced that crazy cloning scheme you told me about.
It would have been easy enough to hide outside those French doors and eavesdrop on the conversation.
Why would I hide? I was expected here. I told you what happened.
Tell me again.
All right. I had to creep at a snail's pace on that long country road from town. The rain was lashing the windshield so hard I could barely see, and the wind was snapping branches off the trees and flinging them against the car. It was like driving through a hurricane. When I got to the wooden bridge that spans a stream that flows around the estate, I had to stop. The stream had turned into a raging river and had torn the bridge to pieces. I remembered a place about a mile from there where an old tree had fallen across the stream years ago. I managed to find that tree and walk across it, even though the rising water nearly covered the trunk. Apparently, I got here just after Grandfather was murdered.
That's a good story, but it sounds rehearsed.
Not nearly enough. It's the truth. I swear it.
Maybe, but I'm still not crossing you off my suspect list.
And who else is on that suspect list, Mr. Davis?
Everyone in this house, except Miss Van Zandt and Miss Collins. They had a heck of a lot to gain if your grandfather had only lived a few more moments. As it turns out, they're left out in the cold.
Especially me. Lois has got other clients. Now I'm among the unemployed.
I'm sure once the estate is settled, a generous severance check could be given.
Yeah, take it out of your portion if you like. Mother and I will pass.
So will I. Nothing personal, of course.
Of course.
Mr. Davis, what do we do now?
The way I see it, we sit tight until daybreak. Then I'll have you show me the way to your car, and you'll drive me into town. I'll report what I know to the police and notify them that the bridge is out. My guess is that they'll have to fly in by helicopter. They'll need to take the body to a coroner's office, examine the crime scene, and take everyone's statements. Once a homicide detective is assigned to the case, I'm out of here.
But you're a detective too, and you were right here when the murder occurred. You have a better chance than anyone else of solving this murder.
Sorry, kid, but now that Mr. Starkweather's dead, I'm off the payroll. Once I give the big boys my statement, I'm finished.
I'll hire you to stay. I won't have the money to pay you until I get my portion of the inheritance, but if you're willing to wait...
You're on, kid. I figured you're good for the dough. Incidentally, that offer just dropped you down to the bottom of the suspect list. Well, might as well start earning my salary.
And how can we help Mr. Davis?
Firstly, I want to question everyone as to their whereabouts when Mr. Starkweather was murdered.
So establish their alibis.
Yeah. Also, I need to know anything all of you or the staff might have seen or heard in the last few hours that might lead us to the killer's identity.
Clues.
You got it. Motives, alibis, and clues. That's what a detective has to work with. The motives in this case are obvious, but the other elements aren't yet. But they will be by the time I'm through with it.
That sounds like a good plan to me. Whom would you like to start with, Mr. Davis?
Since you're paying the freight, call me Mike. How about you, Miss Thompson? Do you mind being first?
Oh, well, I'm awfully tired, but if I have to...
You don't have to, Paula. None of us do.
What do you mean, dear?
Davis isn't a real police officer. We don't have to tell him the time of day.
You're right, Jordan, but why would you refuse to cooperate unless you had something to hide?
Now look, Simon, don't you go accusing me of murder unless you can prove it.
Simon does have a point, though. Do you really want me to tell the police that everyone cooperated, but you?
Ooh. Right, I'll answer your dumb questions, but first I'll be taking Mother upstairs and have her lie down. She's getting up in her years and she needs her rest.
Well, thank you very much, Jordan. I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not Mrs. Methuselah either.
Mother, don't get excited. Do you need your digitalis?
No, but if I did need my digitalis, there's probably a pill or two still under the sofa. I had a little accident with my pill bottle earlier.
Call when you're ready for us.
I'll assume you want to question everyone in private.
Yeah.
You can wait with me and Myram if you like, Kathy. I want to read over the old will again, since it will remain the official one.
Sure, Lois. Please excuse us.
I'd like to stay. Since I wasn't here earlier, hearing everyone's statements would help me get a clearer picture of what happened tonight at Starkweather Mansion.
You're the boss now. I'm particularly interested in the time that Mr. Starkweather announced that he was changing his will and the time he was found dead.
How long was that?
Several hours. Well, Miss Thompson, did you observe anything in that time frame that might help us?
Well, I was very disappointed by Great Uncle Simon's announcement, as you might well imagine. I mean, I can understand why you might want to clone Tom Cruise or Harry Styles, but Great Uncle Simon? Please. No offense, Cousin Simon, but your grandfather was not a very nice person. I spent most of that time in my room, but I did come downstairs once on a little errand. I was outside the kitchen door when I heard Minerva and that cute little maid Nancy talking.
What's wrong with you, girl? Did you leave your mind in the other room? You haven't heard a word I said.
I'm sorry, Minerva. I'm just confused.
About what? Has that no good scamp Jordan been bothering you?
Jordan, I mean Mrs. Starkweather. No, what makes you think that?
Well, when I walked in on you two in the living room, you two were standing mighty close, real lovey-dovey-like. What was he saying to you?
I think he wanted me to...
To do something he didn't want to do?
Yes, but it's not what you're thinking.
I'll bet. If that boy tries anything, I'll cut him down to size.
Minerva, no, please. He's not interested in me. I heard him with Miss Collins. He proposed to her, but she laughed at him.
I get the picture. When you lost your millions, he lost interest in you, didn't he? He's following the money straight to that Collins girl, isn't he?
He proposed to her, but she laughed at him.
Good for her. Serves him right, the lazy bum.
Don't call him that.
Oh, you're hung up on him, aren't you? Don't be a fool, Nancy. He's just gonna use you and toss you aside like he's done a ton of other girls I know of.
Maybe he's ready to settle down now. If Mrs. Starkweather hadn't changed his will, Jordan would be free to...
Free to do what?
Nothing. If we're finished, I'd like to go to my room now.
Go on. But Nancy?
Yes, ma'am?
Lock your door.
Excuse me, sorry. That little scene in the foyer showed a little conversation Paula overheard before the time of the murder. Other characters' stories, well, portions of them, will be shown in flashbacks too. Isn't that clever? Well, I just want to make sure you got that. Sorry for the interruption. Carry on.
That girl is asking for it!
So, Charlie, I mean Mrs. Trent, did you see or hear anything suspicious?
Suspicious. I'd suppose you'd call toting a gun round the house suspicious, even though Mr. Starkweather wasn't shot to death.
A gun? Who has a gun?
Besides me.
Paula Thompson, that's who. She even claimed she's a regular Annie Oakley. She even mentioned how easy it would be to break through those French doors and kill Mr. Starkweather.
Did she now?
Ask her yourself.
Anything else?
Well, I did happen to overhear a rather odd conversation between Rufus and Mrs. Starkweather. I had gone upstairs to distribute the candles I found I stored away after Christmas. I thought it would be a good idea to pass them out, which turned out to be very useful, as you know. I was about to turn to the west wing, yes, and I saw Mrs. Starkweather at the far end, near the stairs.
Miss Starkweather?
Rufus! You scared me out of a year's growth.
Well, that's okay, ma'am. At our age, we do all our growing sideways, don't we?
I certainly hope not. What are you doing with that television set? It doesn't look like a portable.
It is now. I'm borrowing it from one of the guest rooms that ain't in use.
Huh, whatever for.
Well, see, I ain't tired, so I thought I'd watch some TV. But the seat in my room is all messed up. I mean, everybody on the Dad Blame channel is green. Tom Cruise is green. Obama's green. Even the grass is green. Looks like every station's starring Kermit the Frog.
How disconcerting.
You can say that again. Whatever it means. Are them breath mints? I wouldn't mind a few. I can still taste the crop Minerva served the staff for supper.
These? You mustn't take any of these, Rufus. They're for my heart. If you ate any of these, they could kill you.
In that case, I'll pass. You better be careful not to leave any of them lying around, though. If somebody could eat a bunch by mistake and kill over dead.
That's entirely possible.
What would you put on their death certificate? Cause of death, bad breath.
It isn't a laughing matter. I'll be careful with them. I need these pills, you see. I need every one of them.
Rufus has an axe in the house?
Yes, Master Simon. Earlier this evening, I had instructed him to chop some firewood.
I'm surprised you even trust him with an axe.
Personally, I wouldn't trust him with a butter knife. But I was simply relaying on Mrs. Starkweather's instructions.
Was there anything else of interest that you happened to notice?
Just one, sir. Earlier this evening, I saw Master Jordan at the door to Mrs. Starkweather's bedroom. The hall door, not that one. His behavior was somewhat furtive. I was under the impression that I was about to enter when the door opened and Miss Withers came out.
Well, what do you want?
I was going to check on Great Uncle Simon.
No need. That's what I'm paid to do.
How is he, Miss Withers?
Still breathing, if that's what you're wondering.
Why? You misjudged me, Miss Withers.
Oh, give it a rest, Jordan. You'd love to see Mr. Starkweather drop dead before daybreak, just like everyone else in this house.
Including you? $1 million is a fortune. Some people would even kill for that kind of money.
If that's a hint, forget it. As Mr. Starkweather's nurse, I'd be a prime suspect for if his death appeared to be anything but by natural causes.
Suspecting and proving are two different things.
I'm gonna forget you said that. Good night, Jordan. It's true. Jordan Starkweather did hint to me that I was in a position to end his great Uncle Simon's life in a way that would appear natural. I presume Bensonhurst also told you that I refused.
He did, but you could have changed your mind.
And killed him with the blood pressure cuff? That would have been foolish. That's hardly what I call natural causes.
I agree. The manner by which he was murdered makes no sense at all. Whoever did it.
It's as if the murderer was flaunting the deed in our faces.
Why would they want to do that?
That's a good question. Tell me, Miss Withers, if you had to pick a likely suspect to be our murderer, who would it be?
Off the record, that Thompson girl, his great-aunt niece, is way too goody-goody for my taste. All those southern girls can pour on their charm where they want to, but Scarlett O'Hara was pretty ruthless when you get down to it.
We've even been told Cousin Paula has a gun.
You see what I mean? I dare say her and Jordan both are desperate to get their hands on Mr. Starkweather's billions. I overheard them in the corridor shortly after Miss Van Zandt gave her announcement about the new will. They didn't notice me.
Well, what are we going to do?
Do? What can we do? It's out of our hands.
Don't be such a wimp, Cousin Jordan. That money rightfully belongs to us. There's got to be a way to get it.
Maybe we can break his new will if we have Great Uncle Simon declared insane.
I've thought of that, but it won't work. You see, if cloning was just a wild theory, we probably could. But it isn't. It's been done. His plan to be the first person to clone himself might be bizarre, but it isn't insane. We'd lose the case.
And probably spend the pittance we're going to inherit from the lawyers.
Like that Miss Van Zandt. She just...
What is it? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, if you can't beat him, join him.
Huh?
I just came up with a way to get Miss Van Zandt to put me on her team.
What is it?
Fend for yourself, Jordan. If you'll excuse me, I need to speak with that lawyer.
If you can't beat him. Oh, yeah, now, where would Kathy be?
It's true, Jordan did suggest we get married, but it wasn't really what you'd call a romantic proposal. It was more like a business proposition.
You were going to have access to billions. What did he have to offer you?
Himself, I guess. But in my opinion, that fortune hunter isn't worth 2 cents.
Then you did turn him down.
Jordan is attractive in a smarmy kind of way, but any girl who were to marry him would be a fool. And believe me, Mike, I am no fool.
I knew that from the time that we started working together.
You were smart enough to volunteer to carry grandfather's clone.
Look, Simon, once Mr. Starkweather made up his mind to clone himself, nothing was going to be done to change it. He would have found a surrogate mother somewhere, so it might as well have been me.
I understand. I just think the whole idea was a bit creepy.
Well, you're a lot nicer about than the other heirs were.
For example?
Paula, for one. She definitely had not given up her hopes on getting her hands on Mrs. Starkweather's money.
How do you know?
Well, I was in Lois's room when Paula knocks on the door. She asked Lois to step out into the hallway where she could speak to her in private. Lois went out with her, but she didn't close the door behind her completely, so I couldn't help but overhear their conversation.
We're very busy, Miss Thompson.
Preparing that new will?
Yes.
Miss Van Zandt, you're a lawyer. Are you sure this cloning business is legal? Couldn't you lose your license to practice it?
The process will take place in Belgium, as we told you, and our laws don't apply there.
What about ethics? Haven't lawyers been disbarred before for behavior that was unethical, if not illegal?
And what's your point?
I want to know the deal. You can pay me from that trust fund to be the baby's nanny or whatever. I don't care what you name the position, but if you refuse, I shall be forced to report you to the Bar Association. Isn't that what you call it?
It is. But let me give you a little free legal advice, Miss Thompson. In the first place, if you make any accusations against me before the cloning procedure has been completed successfully, I'll sue you for the $50,000 you're due to receive and everything else you own. And don't worry, I'll get it. And secondly, once the baby is on the way, I plan to close down my office and devote all of my time to Kathy and little Simon's care. At that point, it won't bother me the least if I am disbarred. You don't have to be a lawyer to administer an estate. Anyone can do it.
Oh.
So you see, young woman, your threats are meaningless. And in fact, as an officer of the court, I should report your feeble attempt at extortion to the police.
I wasn't.
Save it. Take your silly southern self out of my sight, and I might be willing to forget it.
All right, I'll go. You liar?
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Trent?
I found what's left of the Christmas candles I stored away. I thought it would be a good idea to pass them out.
Oh, that's very thoughtful of you. Thank you. I'll take one for Kathy. She's in my room.
Miss Thompson?
Oh, all right. I'm going to my room. There's something I need to get.
What's the matter with her?
Let's just say she's a poor loser. Miss Thompson played her ace, and I chumped it, in a manner of speaking. I'll give this to Kathy.
If I remember correctly, when Miss Collins screamed, you came in through the front door. What had you been doing outside, Rufus?
Was I outside? Yep, I guess I was. I remember now. I was borrowing a TV from the guest room, 'cause...
We heard why, Rufus.
You did? News sure travels fast around here.
All the actors on your set were green.
Sure was. Looked like the Martians had landed or something. But when I hooked up the new set, the picture didn't come in too good. Everybody was fuzzy, like a woolly worm.
And so you went outside to fix the antenna on the roof?
It wouldn't do much good to put it in the basement, would it? Well, I was gonna get the ladder out of the storage shed before Mr. Starkweather croaked. and they call it bloody murder, even if it wasn't bloody.
When you were outside, Rufus, did you see or hear anything?
I saw an owl and heard a bunch of bullfrogs.
I meant humans, Rufus.
I saw Mr. Jordan on the patio when I was coming in.
Earlier tonight, Rufus, did you hear anyone talking about the new will?
Who didn't? Minerva and old Bensonhurst wasn't talking about much else. They was going on about it in the kitchen before Mr. Starkweather croaked.
What were they saying?
That it ain't fair. Well, that's what. That they worked hard for Mr. Starkweather all these years and should have got their millions. Me, I didn't care too much. I figured $50,000 would buy me a new TV with a real big screen. Now, I might even get me two.
Bensonhurst and Minerva?
Oh, right. The more Minerva thought about it, the madder she got. And she got a temper. She's about ready to storm into Mr. Starkweather's room and give him a piece of her mind.
Mustn't go in there, Minerva.
Who's gonna stop me?
I shall if necessary.
You and what army?
Look. I totally agree with you that we are wronged, but a conversation is not the answer.
Oh yeah? Then what is?
Have patience. Mrs. Starkweather hasn't signed the will yet, so perhaps he'll change his mind by morning.
Ha! We should live so long.
No, Minerva. He should live so long.
What were you doing outside at about the time of the murder?
Just getting a breath of fresh air. Is there anything wrong with that?
Not unless you remained outside.
What do you mean?
When I made a cursory examination of the crime scene, I noticed that Miss Withers left her window raised a couple of inches.
Are you accusing me of killing Great Uncle Simon?
I'm not accusing anybody yet.
Besides, from what we've heard, Cousin Jordan, it's more your style into conning someone into doing your bidding.
And who told you that?
I'll ask the questions if you don't mind. I repeat, what were you doing outside?
If you must know, Kathy and I had a disagreement, and I blew up. I went outside to cool off. Well, have you already heard about that as well?
I ask, you answer, remember? Well, answer me this. If you didn't murder Mr. Starkweather, then who did?
I'm not saying she did it, but have you taught that little maid, Nancy, yet?
Why her, Cousin Jordan?
The girl has a crush on me. I admit, I've flirted with the ladies a lot, but I have done nothing to lead her on. I know that she was very disappointed about the new will. Not just that she would lose her million, but that I would lose even more. I was strolling outside the house and was just outside the kitchen when I heard Nancy talking to Miss Withers.
Can I do something for you, Miss Withers?
I was just getting a pitcher of fresh drinking water to put by Mr. Starkweather's bedside. I got it.
That poor man. When he had lost his breath and had the attack in the living room, I realized just what you meant by the slightest shock could prove to be fatal.
Exactly.
The slightest shock. His Val.
I must go.
Yes, we wouldn't want anything to happen to him. Now would we? I was shocked when I heard Mrs. Starkweather had included me in his will. I didn't think he noticed me.
Then you received two surprises. To hear that you'd inherit $1 million, and that had been taken away immediately afterwards.
3 surprises. Now you're wealthy again.
Oh, Mrs. Starkweather, I was thrilled to hear that your grandfather had left me with $50,000. With that kind of money, I could go to college like you and get a good education.
Now you can do anything you want, Nancy. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I haven't been thinking about it much recently.
Who's been on your mind, Nancy?
I...
Jordan Starkweather, perhaps? You're very fond of him.
Who told you that?
Cousin Jordan himself, for one. He implied you may even be willing to kill for him.
He what? How could he say such a thing?
There, Nancy. Now you see what Cousin Jordan's really like. He's out for himself and will trample anyone who gets in his way.
I guess I knew that. Minerva tried to warn me. I even had him propose to Miss Collins, but she turned him down and then laughed about it with her friend Miss Van Zandt. I was taking fresh showers later when I heard them talking. You think Jordan is cold-hearted, but Miss Collins, she's as bad as he is.
Can you believe it? I mean, those soulful gazes might work some innocent young thing like that little maid Nancy, but he learned quick enough. I'm no pushover.
I only wish I had been there to see it. It's time Jordan met his match. I could have told that little maid Nancy about all the other maids that worked here before her, but his Playboy days will be over soon enough.
What do you mean?
Well, up until now, Mr. Starkweather has given Jordan, as well as Fiona, Paula, and young Mr. Simon a generous allowance. But once he passes, the $50,000 bequeaths will be the last they see of the Starkweather fortune. They'll have to learn what it's like to work for a living.
Exactly. Well, Simon's nearly out of school. He'll do fine.
Yeah.
But the others, they'll go through their money in no
I
time.
know.
And then what kind of jobs can they get? Oh, can y'all imagine Paula behind the desk of the car rental agency?
Or Jordan driving the car down to the customers.
And what will Fiona do? Oh, sell Avon? Oh my God.
Could I get you anything, Cousin Fiona? A
No.
glass of water, perhaps?
Oh dear, I'm fine, thank you. Mr. Davis, I'm here to tell you that my Jordan couldn't have done, oh dear, what was done to Uncle Simon. He was with me in my room all evening.
Mrs. Starkweather, we both know that can't be true. I saw you in here earlier with Miss Withers and Bensonhurst, and Jordan told us himself that he went outside.
Oh, maybe it was last night he sat with me.
Maybe it was.
Now I know why Sherlock Holmes never believed his suspects in A Study in Pink. It's so easy to get confused.
Focus on tonight, Mrs. Starkweather. Did you see anything suspicious?
Suspicious? Well, I did see Uncle Simon's body with that horrible thing around his neck. I'd call that suspicious.
Mr. Davis means before that.
Before? Well, I don't know if this is the sort of thing you mean, but
Yes?
it was right after we had been told about the new will and had all gone upstairs. I was passing by that secretary's door when I heard her and the housekeeper inside. They were speaking rather loudly, so I couldn't help but overhear.
Oh, what are you doing in my room, Mrs. Trent?
Oh, just checking all of the guest rooms. Make sure there are extra blankets in each. I suppose you're very pleased with yourself, Miss Collins.
Why would you say that?
It all worked out just as you planned.
I don't know what you mean.
I think you do. I understand now why you brought all those magazines from town and left them lying round where Mr. Starkweather would see them. You've done it for months.
What magazines?
Don't play dumb, Miss Collins. Those news magazines and scientific journals, I've seen them. I've seen them. They all had one thing in common: articles about cloning. I didn't realize it until tonight, but now it's obvious what you're doing. You planted the idea in Mr. Starkweather's head to clone himself.
Well, so what if I did? There are no laws against sharing ideas, are there?
I'm sure your lawyer friend would say no, since you're in this together. But that doesn't mean it's right. I think what you're planning to do is hideous.
Well, frankly, I could not care less what you think. Get out!
Starting to give orders already, are you? I'll leave. But remember one thing, young woman. You're not Queen Bee yet. And you won't be until Mr. Starkweather's name is on a dotted line. Assuming that ever happens.
Kathy told me about Mrs. Trent's accusations, how she engineered the cloning business, possibly with my help. Apparently, Mrs. Starkweather reported the conversation accurately, which is something of a surprise.
Is it true? Did you and Miss Collins plant the idea in grandfather's head to clone himself?
I don't really think that's relevant to the case at hand, Simon. But even if we did, we weren't breaking any laws. Isn't that right, Mr. Davis?
No laws that I can think of.
Then shouldn't we be focusing on the law that was broken? I'm referring to the murder, of course.
You're right again, Miss Van Zandt. Can you volunteer any information for us?
Well, I'll tell you this. Earlier this evening, I went down to the kitchen to go ask Minerva for a pot of coffee. It was apparent that Kathy and I were going to be working late tonight, and I thought the caffeine might help us stay awake. Minerva wasn't there, but Rufus was, and he was talking to Mrs. Starkweather. Their conversation was very peculiar. Good heavens, Rufus! What are you doing with that axe?
I just brought it from the wood pile to dry it off. Sharpen it up too. Wanna see?
Goodness, no! Put it away.
Maybe I better before it hurts somebody or even kills them.
That's a horrible thought.
Ain't it, Lo? I get those sometimes. Do you? I see you still got your poison pills.
Digitalis isn't a poison, it's a stimulant. You just have to be careful not to take too many.
You had a lot more in the bottle when I saw you upstairs. Oops, I hope you haven't gotten overdosed. I think I can figure out that mouth-to-mouth stuff.
If you bring those lips any closer to mine, I'll snatch that axe out of your hands and chop them off.
Just trying to help, Miss Starkweather.
Well, don't. There are fates worse than death. I assure you, however, that I'm fine. I spilled the pills earlier in the living room and I wasn't able to find them all.
I hope Minerva don't find none. She fixes Mr. Starkweather's meals, and she's mighty mad at him right now.
What are you suggesting?
Oh, nothing. Was it something you needed in the kitchen?
Oh, I was just going to see if Minerva had any of those delicious hors d'oeuvres left over.
I can look.
Never mind. I seem to have lost my appetite.
Mr. Starkweather's meals? What do you want to know about him?
Who did he dine with? Did he eat the same meals as everyone else?
Well, Mr. Starkweather was on a very restricted diet. Low salt and low fat. So I prepared all his meals on the side. Why? You think there's something wrong with my cooking?
No, Minerva. You're a wonderful cook. That leg of lamb you served earlier tonight was wonderful.
Yes, well, I have been told I have terrific legs. What's the problem?
Never mind. You told me what I needed to know. Changing the subject, do you remember who gathered in the kitchen when the lights went out? Before I got there, I mean.
The blackout? I'm not sure. Let me think. I was in the pantry gathering supplies for breakfast when the lights went out. It took me a moment to find the candle Miss Trent gave me and light it.
Minerva? Nancy? Is everyone all right?
I was in my room when everything went dark. What happened?
Bensonhurst here forgot to pay his light bills.
Keep that up and I'll forget to pay your wages.
What in blazes is going on?
Apparently, the storm knocked out the electricity. See, my candles did come in handy.
Remind me to give you a gold star later. Bensonhurst, can you get the lights back on?
That's what I came to find out. Bensonhurst?
There's the circuit breaker's right over here.
I hope they hurry. I don't like the dark.
That quick enough for you. I'll get back to my chore.
What did he come inside for? The idiot tracked water all over my clean floor.
Why Mr. Starkweather doesn't fire him, I'll never know.
Any luck?
Yeah, it was there all right, and it should be enough to pinpoint our murderer, but I wish I had more. It could take weeks to get the results, and if the will is probated and the killer gets his or her share of the inheritance, they could disappear for good. I mean, it's easy enough to buy a new identity for $1 million or more.
I would have hoped that we'd learn more from questioning the suspects.
Yeah, they were so busy with trying to make each other look guilty, they didn't reveal much about themselves. Sometimes, though, just the slightest... Simon, move your feet. Here, on the floor. It's... Oh, what they were doing was so insignificant, I barely noticed that at the time. Simon, I know who murdered your grandfather.
Who?
I'll tell everyone as soon as I gather the evidence. Quick, go tell Bensonhurst and have him bring all the guests down here immediately.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Trent sent me in here to see if you'd like another pot of coffee.
No time for that. Tell everyone to get down here on the double.
Yes, sir.
I don't think the police chief will mind if I use sandwich bags to gather evidence. I don't think he'll mind at all.
What's
going
on? So
What do you
late.
want?
Calm down, everybody. Take a seat.
Good reason. Mr. Davis, it is very late or very early, depending on how you look at it. If no one else is going to ask, I will. Why did you call us together at this hour?
It has been a long night, hasn't it? I'm sure you're all very tired. I know I am. But I thought you would rest just a little easier knowing who murdered Simon Starkweather.
What? You mean you've discovered who killed Great Uncle Simon?
I'm pretty sure I have, as I'm going to show you in the next couple minutes.
I'm amazed, Mike. How did you figure it out?
First, I had to find the answer to a question that had bothered me from the beginning. It would have been so easy to make Mr. Starkweather's death appear of natural causes, a suggestion Jordan Starkweather made to Miss Withers. For example, Mrs. Starkweather or her son could have given him some of her digitalis to trigger a heart attack. Then again, any of you who were aware that she had them and had left some on the floor of this room earlier, no doubt, when she spilt them. Then again, Miss Withers could have achieved the same effect by injecting an air bubble into his bloodstream with a hypodermic needle. Then again, any of you could have stolen a needle from her room and done the same thing. I bet some of you also considered frightening the old man to death. Rufus with his axe, Minerva with her knife, Miss Thompson with her gun, Bensonhurst with his wrench. The possibilities are endless. Why then did the murderer choose to put the blood pressure cuff around his neck and inflate it until Mr. Starkweather strangled to death? The answer is so simple, I feel foolish for not realizing sooner what must have really happened.
Well, might one ask what that is?
Well, when the blood pressure cuff was put around his neck, Mr. Starkweather was already dead.
What?
Am I right, Miss Van Zandt?
You are very clever, Mr. Davis.
It had to have been you. We were in here together when the lights went out. I went to go find Bensonhurst, and you went to go check on Mr. Starkweather. His murder must have slipped into Miss Withers' room seconds before you found the body.
That's what I figured too.
But why the cuff around his neck?
Well, as our able detective here has been able to surmise, the murderer made it appear that Mr. Starkweather had had a heart attack. Death had indeed been due to natural causes. There was no doubt in my mind, however, that someone in this house had killed him. I knew that under the circumstances, the coroner would have no reason to perform an autopsy on the body, nor would the police conduct an investigation, and I wasn't about to let my employee's murderer get away scot-free. I saw the blood pressure cuff on the table, so I grabbed it, wrapped it around Mr. Starkweather's neck, and inflated it before wheeling him into this room.
And your plan worked. No one would ever question the fact that he had been murdered.
So young Simon hired Mr. Davis to find the killer.
Which I have. That was very naughty of you, Miss Van Zandt. Your little ploy distracted me from the main problem. Instead of thinking who did it, I kept thinking why did they do it that way? Once I solved that piece of the puzzle, the rest came easier.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, but if you have discovered the identity of the murderer, then the ends seem to have justified the means.
I'm sure the police will agree, and might even overlook the fact that you're guilty of tampering with evidence at a crime scene.
If not, I'm on very good terms with the local judges.
Wait a minute. How do you know that Miss Van Zandt didn't kill Great Uncle Simon herself?
No motive.
Oh, yeah.
Don't keep us in suspense, Mike. Tell us who did kill Mrs. Starkweather.
I'll do better than that. I'll show you.
What?
Huh?
Bear with me. I assume you all have the candles Miss Trent distributed earlier tonight in case of a blackout. Please take them out and light them.
Ooh, this is nice. Very Christmassy.
When I first examined Mr. Starkweather's body, I found what appeared to be a few drops of blood on his bathrobe. On closer inspection, they turned out to be another substance entirely, and I forgot about them at the moment. While I was interviewing each of you individually, I noticed one of you scraping one thumbnail against the other. I took it to be a nervous gesture. Nerves triggered by guilt, as it turned out. I didn't realize the significance of this gesture until I recalled Minerva's testimony, and she reminded me of those of you who gathered in the kitchen with candles when the lights went out. And then I found these on the floor by the sofa, and I had the link I needed to identify the murderer. Thin scrapings of red tallow. Tallow from the killer's thumbnail. Tallow that matched the red drops on Mr. Starkweather's robe. Tallow from the red candle the murderer was holding when she killed Simon Starkweather. Tallow from the one red candle among which you are holding Minerva Walker.
There could have been other red candles.
There aren't. I remember thinking when we took them down after Christmas that we have to buy some new ones for next year.
Is this the only evidence you have to offer the police? This candle?
No, Minerva, I have better proof than that. As I was walking about the room a few minutes ago, I glanced at everyone's hands. I noticed that you, in particular, have very thin scratches along your wrist, made by Mr. Starkweather, no doubt, as he struggled for his life. I'll bet my reputation that these skin samples I was able to scrape from underneath his nails belong to you. It'll be easy enough to be proven, and I've met quite a few experts and DNA specialists in the last 6 months.
Bravo, Mr. Davis.
Well,
I don't suppose you'd consider cloning those skin scrapings and sending the new me to jail, would you? I didn't think so. Well, Miss Van Zant, I guess my biggest mistake was trying to cross a lawyer. I might have caused you to lose access to Mr. Starkweather's billions, but you sure got your revenge.
why don't you tell us what happened?
I might as well. You already figured out the main details anyway. I was furious with Mr. Starkweather for building up our hopes and then dashing them to the ground. I thought a man that cruel didn't deserve to live. I listened at his door to the hallway and slipped inside when I was sure he was alone. I went to him. I gripped the handles of his wheelchair and leaned right down to his face. I told him I thought what he was going to do was monstrous. I told him he didn't deserve to live. I told him I was gonna kill him. I reached for his throat. He reeled back in his chair, and the impact sent the reading lamp crashing to the floor and the pitcher of water right on top of it. When the water hit the lamp, it short-circuited and blew the circuit breaker.
So you didn't cause the blackout deliberately?
No, it nearly ruined everything. But luckily, I still had the candle and matches in my pocket. I gripped the oxygen. I managed to hold the match in one hand, while I gripped the oxygen mask off his chair with the other. I clamped the mask hard down over his nose and mouth. He couldn't breathe, of course. He made a feeble attempt to fight back with one hand while he rang that bell with the other. But all he managed to make were a few insignificant scratches on my wrist, as you noticed, and drop a few drops of candle wax on his robe. I don't know if he died of suffocation or a heart attack, but it was all over in seconds. The old man wasn't able to do much, but I guess it was enough to pin his murder on me.
And then?
I put the oxygen mask back on his chair, blew out my candle and put it in my pocket, and slipped through the connecting room door to Miss Withers' room. Her back was to me. She just managed to find her candle and was lighting it. I grabbed a brass candlestick from a bureau and struck her with it. She fell to the floor, and her candle went out. I suppose this is when you were trying to pin my apparent natural death into apparent murder, Miss Van Zant. A moment later, Miss Collins screamed, and I joined the rest of you as you ran in here.
I'm sure you were surprised as everyone else to see that blood pressure cuff around Mr. Starkweather's neck.
I was, but what could I do? It was easy to tell what Miss Van Zant had pulled. I would have loved to kill you too. But I didn't dare try, of course. Until now! At this point, I have nothing to lose. Get up. Don't anybody move.
Easy now. You don't want to do anything you might regret.
It's too late for that advice, Mr. Davis. Get up. You're coming with me.
Oh, but where can we go? The bridge is all washed out.
I know where the fallen tree that Simon mentioned is. Simon! Throw your car keys on the table.
You're never going to get away.
Oh, I think I might. All your cars are on this side of the stream, and it'll take you hours to get to town and notify the police. I'll be long gone by then.
And what about me?
If it weren't for you, I would have committed the perfect crime. What do you think I'm gonna do with you?
Well, nothing if I can help it. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine.
You burned me!
Hold it right
Consider
there.
it a preview of the afterlife.
Come here. I always keep these with me in case I ever need them. Let's have them.
Mike, remind me to pay you a big bonus.
Sure thing. Well, you're going to be spending a long time behind bars. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, there's one good thing. Someone else can cook for a change.
Who is that?
Wait, what's going on?
What's going on?
Now.
What's the matter?
Oh my goodness.
What?
Sorry, but I better see what it's all about. It's from Mr. St. John. It says he just came to from a drug-induced coma. And when he awoke, a fantastic solution to the play was crystal clear. Oh my, this new ending is unbelievable. Better than any of the possible conclusions he came up with before. You simply have to see it. Oh, but I see some things which have to go down in the first act. I guess we have to do the whole play again.
No!
How's it feel, Tom?
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I thought that was absolutely fantastic, didn't you? Let's give our cast a big round of applause, please. And the best thing about it, they were GWA secondary school students. Big round of applause, come on!